What if Hollywood's biggest holiday movies are already walking into a box office trap? The final months of 2026 are packed with superheroes, sequels, expensive fantasies, animation, and giant franchises fighting for the exact same audience. Some could become massive hits. Others may discover that a famous name means nothing when 5 blockbusters arrive together. And number 1, even the headline's $350 million break-even estimate may actually be too low. Before we begin, hit like, share this video with another movie fan, and subscribe to the channel. Number 17. Godzilla -0. Sometimes the safest-looking movie becomes dangerous simply because expectations explode. After Godzilla -1 became an international phenomenon, its direct sequel, Godzilla -0, arrives on November 6 with something the previous film never had: enormous pressure. The story continues with survivors from the earlier destruction roughly 2 years later, while Godzilla once again emerges as a terrifying force. The CinemaCon footage reportedly pushed the scale much further, ending with the monster appearing around New York and the Statue of Liberty. That image alone tells audiences this sequel is thinking much bigger. But bigger can become the problem. -1 reportedly cost only around $15 million and eventually earned about $116 million worldwide. The sequel has a larger budget and must satisfy audiences who now expect another miracle. November is also crowded with major releases. This one probably has the lowest danger level on our list because the filmmakers have already proved they can create spectacle without runaway Hollywood spending. Still, repeating a surprise phenomenon is much harder than creating one. Number 16. Violent Night 2. Christmas movies usually offer warm houses, decorations, presents, and family reunions. This franchise decided Santa would rather enter an action movie. David Harbour returns for Violent Night 2, opening December 4th, with Kristen Bell, Jared Harris, and Joe Pantoliano joining the cast. The basic attraction remains wonderfully strange. Take the most recognizable Christmas figure on Earth and place him inside an exaggerated action comedy adventure. That worked because the first movie felt unexpected. The sequel has a harder job. Audiences already know the joke. There is also a difference between being a fun alternative holiday movie and becoming something viewers consider essential theatrical entertainment. December 2026 becomes increasingly brutal as the month continues, meaning Violent Night 2 needs to collect its money quickly before enormous franchises begin taking premium screens. Its best weapon may actually be its smaller scale. It does not need Avengers numbers. But if audiences decide they already received everything they wanted from this concept the first time, Santa could discover that returning to the same chimney twice is much more difficult. If you enjoy box office breakdowns that look beyond the marketing hype, subscribe and turn on notifications. And tell us in the comments which upcoming movie you think Hollywood is overestimating the most. Number 14. Jimmy. Hollywood loves nostalgia, but nostalgia does not always buy a ticket. Jimmy turns the life of James Stewart into a prestige biopic, with KJ Apa playing the actor during his rise from Pennsylvania to Hollywood, his Oscar-winning years, his military service, and eventually, the making of It's a Wonderful Life. The film is scheduled for a wide release on November 6th, right in the middle of an unusually crowded fall corridor. The trailer's strongest hook is seeing Apa recreate Stewart's familiar voice, posture, and old Hollywood manner, while the story shifts from studio glamour to wartime responsibility. That gives the movie emotional weight beyond a standard celebrity biography. The commercial problem is simple. Younger audiences may know It's a Wonderful Life without feeling any urgency to see a James Stewart life story in theaters. And on November 6th, Jimmy shares the marketplace with Godzilla -0, Wild Horse 9, and The Cat in the Hat. A respectful biopic could easily become the quietest movie in a very loud weekend. Number 13. 0 AD. A biblical epic arriving during Christmas season sounds almost unbeatable on paper, but modern theatrical audiences have repeatedly shown that faith alone does not guarantee blockbuster numbers. 0 AD comes from director Alejandro Monteverde and is scheduled for December 11th. The film is built around the biblical account commonly known as the Massacre of the Innocents, placing its dramatic story against events surrounding the early life of Jesus. Jim Caviezel is among the cast. That gives the movie something several films on this list lack: a clearly identifiable audience. The danger comes from scale. Faith-based viewers can turn relatively modest productions into enormous successes when enthusiasm becomes grassroots momentum. But if production and marketing expectations rise too far, reaching beyond that core audience becomes essential. And 1 week after 0 AD opens, both Avengers, Doomsday and Dune, Part 3, arrive on December 18th. That means the movie gets only 7 days before two gigantic competitors dominate entertainment conversation. The Christmas timing makes perfect thematic sense. Commercially, however, it puts 0 AD directly underneath one of the heaviest theatrical waves of the entire year. Number 12. Ebenezer, A Christmas Carol. Do audiences really need another version of Ebenezer Scrooge? Paramount certainly believes there is room for one, because Johnny Depp plays the legendary miser in Ebenezer, A Christmas Carol, directed by Ty West and scheduled for November 13th. Instead of presenting Dickens as gentle family nostalgia, the marketing emphasizes a darker supernatural atmosphere. Footage shows frightening spirits confronting Scrooge, while other moments, including him throwing snowballs at people outside, suggest the film is also having fun with Depp's eccentric screen presence. Ian McKellen, Daisy Ridley, Rupert Grint, Andrea Riseborough, and Tremel Tillman help fill out an unusually recognizable cast. The obvious problem is familiarity. A Christmas Carol may be one of the most frequently adapted stories in popular culture. Audiences already know Scrooge, Tiny Tim, the spirits, the transformation, and the ending. So this version must convince people that darker visuals and a famous leading man justify another theatrical ticket. Curiosity surrounding Depp's return to a large Hollywood production will generate headlines, but curiosity and ticket sales are not identical. If viewers decide this looks like something they can comfortably watch at home in December, Scrooge may have trouble convincing them to open their wallets. Number 11. Street Fighter. Video game adaptations are finally enjoying a better reputation, which means Street Fighter arrives at exactly the right moment, and with absolutely nowhere to hide. The new film is scheduled for October 16 and reportedly takes place in 1993. Ryu and Ken, played by Andrew Koji and Noah Centineo, have become estranged before Chun-Li brings them toward the World Warrior Tournament. What begins as competition leads into a larger conspiracy, connecting the fighters and their pasts. Jason Momoa and Curtis 50 Cent Jackson are also part of the enormous ensemble. The tournament should provide the movie's obvious crowd-pleasing centerpiece, recognizable fighters, signature moves, and one outrageous matchup after another. Yet that is also where expectations become dangerous. Game fans will examine costumes, personalities, and combat details. Casual audiences need something beyond references. And Hollywood has already tried bringing Street Fighter to cinemas before. This version has modern blockbuster resources and IMAX ambitions. But October 16 also places it against Whalefall, with Clayface arriving only a week later. The movie does not simply need to satisfy gamers. It must convince everybody else that Street Fighter has finally become a theatrical event. Number 10. Wild Horse 9. Prestige can become a box office trap when the audience is too small. Wild Horse 9 comes from Martin McDonagh and stars Sam Rockwell and John Malkovich as CIA agents sent from Santiago toward Easter Island shortly before the 1973 Chilean coup. What begins as an assignment gradually turns into a dangerous journey built around suspicion, loyalty, and the question of whether either man can trust the other. The trailer sells that strange mixture of tension and dark comedy. Rockwell and Malkovich trade dry, uncomfortable exchanges, while the Chilean landscape makes their mission feel increasingly isolated. It looks intelligent, unusual, and completely unlike the franchise films surrounding it. That may also be the problem. Searchlight is giving the film a wide November 6th release, the same date as Godzilla -0 and several other notable titles. Adult dramas can survive on reviews and awards buzz, but they rarely explode instantly. If audiences postpone this one for streaming, Wild Horse 9 could earn admiration long before it earns serious theatrical money. Number 9. The Cat in the Hat. One enormous red and white hat is about to test whether an iconic children's character can completely reinvent his theatrical reputation. Warner Bros. Pictures Animation brings The Cat in the Hat back on November 6th, with Bill Hader voicing the cat. This time, the character works for the Institute of Imagination and is sent to help siblings struggling after moving to a new town. Naturally, his attempt to improve their lives creates increasingly ridiculous chaos. That gives the animated version freedom the 2003 live-action film never possessed. The exaggerated environments and impossible physical comedy of Dr. Seuss naturally fit animation. But November 6 is becoming shockingly crowded. On the same date, audiences can choose Godzilla -0 and the gigantic Indian production Ramayana, Part 1, alongside other releases. Families are valuable because parents purchase multiple tickets at once. They are also selective. The movie therefore needs more than recognizable artwork. It needs songs, jokes, clips, or characters children repeatedly demand to see. Otherwise, the cat could discover that brand recognition gets people to watch a trailer, but it does not automatically get an entire family into a theater. Number 8. Father-in-Law. 16 years after the previous installment, somebody apparently decided it was finally time to make another trip into the most uncomfortable family in modern comedy. Father-in-Law opens November 25th with Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro returning. Ariana Grande plays Olivia Jones, the woman involved with Greg Focker's son Henry. The new comic reversal is that De Niro's intimidating Jack appears to like Olivia, while Greg becomes suspicious of her. She is also described as a former FBI hostage negotiator, giving Jack another reason to approve. The trailer's most useful gag is simply watching the family dynamic flip. Greg, once the nervous outsider desperately seeking approval, is becoming the suspicious older parent. That is a smart continuation. But dormant comedy franchises are unpredictable. The original Meet the Parents earned around $330 million worldwide and became a cultural phenomenon. Much of that success came from Stiller and De Niro feeling fresh together. Now the movie must attract viewers who remember those films while introducing the joke to younger audiences. Thanksgiving is excellent territory for family comedy. It is also incredibly competitive. Nostalgia will get Father-in-Law noticed. Whether nostalgia can fill theaters again is the $300 million question. Number 7. Hexed. Disney is entering Thanksgiving with something surprisingly dangerous. An animated movie without decades of franchise protection. Hexed, the studio's 65th animated feature, opens November 25. Haley Steinfeld voices Billy, an impulsive teenager who unexpectedly discovers magical abilities and is transported from ordinary suburbia into the witch-filled realm of Hex. Rashida Jones voices her much more cautious mother, Alice, who joins the adventure as the pair begins uncovering secrets connected to their family. The central visual appeal is the contrast between everyday family life and a completely magical civilization. Public footage presented during the movie's rollout has emphasized the strange new world and the mother-daughter partnership rather than relying on an existing Disney princess or sequel character. Creatively, that is refreshing. Financially, original animation has become one of Hollywood's toughest sells. Parents instantly understand what Toy Story, Frozen, Minions, or Mario represents. Hexed has to teach families its characters, rules, and mythology, while simultaneously convincing children that this is the movie they cannot miss. It also opens November 25 beside Father-in-Law, only 5 days after The Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping. Disney is even pairing the theatrical release with a Lilo and Stitch-related short, which gives families another recognizable attraction. Yet the fundamental challenge remains brutal. Original movies need audiences to fall in love before opening weekend, while franchises begin with that relationship already built. If Hexed cannot create one irresistible character or viral sequence before Thanksgiving, magic alone may not protect it. Number 6. The Angry Birds Movie 3. There is nothing inherently wrong with another Angry Birds movie. The frightening part is where Paramount has decided to release it. The third animated installment arrives December 23rd, with returning franchise talent joined by performers including Lily James and Keke Palmer. The familiar attraction remains simple: colorful birds, broad physical comedy, and the video game brand that turned launching furious birds through the air into a worldwide phenomenon. Detailed story information has remained relatively limited compared with some other holiday blockbusters, meaning the brand itself currently has to do much of the selling. Then look at the calendar. Avengers. Doomsday opens December 18th. Dune, Part 3 opens December 18th. The Angry Birds Movie 3 arrives December 23. And Jumanji, Open World follows December 25th. That is an extraordinary fight for screens, advertising attention and family money during 8 days. Animation does have one advantage. Young children are not necessarily choosing between Angry Birds and Dune. But Jumanji absolutely can compete for families, while Avengers attracts parents, teenagers, and older children. The movie therefore needs to become the easy Christmas choice for families with younger kids. Otherwise, it risks being trapped between 3 giant live-action events, like a tiny red bird sitting underneath 3 approaching freight trains. Number 5. Dune, Part 3. How can a sequel to one of the decade's most acclaimed science fiction franchises possibly appear on a dead-on-arrival list? One date explains everything. December 18, 2026. Denis Villeneuve's third Dune film continues Paul Atreides' story years after Dune, Part 2, and draws from Frank Herbert's Dune Messiah. Paul is now emperor, but gaining power has created new enemies, political consequences, and increasingly dangerous uncertainty about the future. Robert Pattinson joins the story as Scytale, while Jason Momoa returns in a development familiar to readers of Herbert's books. Early footage reportedly emphasizes how much has changed. Paul and Chani discuss their future. Questions about leadership hang over Paul, and the imagery suggests another enormous collision of politics, religion, war, and personal betrayal. So, what is the problem? Avengers. Doomsday opens the exact same day. Warner Bros. Officially lists Dune, Part 3, for December 18th, while Disney has that identical date for Avengers. That means two movies designed for giant screens may be fighting over IMAX locations, premium formats, and the same blockbuster-minded audience. This is not necessarily fatal. Dune has become prestigious event cinema, and holiday legs can be enormous. But releasing opposite Avengers creates unnecessary pressure. Instead of owning premium theaters for weeks, Villeneuve's epic could spend opening weekend negotiating for screens. The movie itself may be excellent. The release strategy is the gamble. Number 4. Avengers. Doomsday. Normally, putting Avengers on a holiday schedule would look less like a risk and more like printing money. But Avengers Doomsday carries expectations almost no movie could comfortably survive. Disney's December 18 event brings together an enormous collection of Marvel characters, with Robert Downey Jr. appearing as Dr. Doom, alongside Chris Hemsworth, Anthony Mackie, Pedro Pascal, and members of the X-Men universe. Marvel is selling this as a collision between multiple corners of its cinematic history, rather than another ordinary superhero installment. The marketing has already leaned into enormous imagery, Doom confronting familiar heroes, Avengers and X-Men occupying the same story, devastated cityscapes and large-scale battles that promise the type of crossover once thought impossible. That sounds unbeatable. It also means pretty successful may not be considered successful enough. A production carrying this many famous actors, effects-heavy sequences, and worldwide marketing expectations needs genuine event-level attendance. Anything resembling an ordinary superhero opening would immediately be described as disappointment. Then there is Dune, Part 3, opening on the exact same day. Marvel will probably dominate overall screen count, yet Dune competes aggressively for older viewers and premium format enthusiasts, the people willing to pay the highest ticket prices. So Doomsday faces a bizarre problem. Nobody expects it to fail. Everybody expects it to be gigantic. And sometimes expectations become the most expensive opponent of all. Number 3. Jumanji, Open World. Christmas Day could turn into a very expensive family argument. Jumanji, Open World reunites Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, and the modern franchise ensemble on December 25th. This time, however, the game is no longer safely contained inside its digital world. The central premise has the adventure breaking into reality, allowing the dangers and absurd rules of Jumanji to invade the normal world around the characters. That reversal is clever because it prevents the sequel from simply sending everybody through another jungle. Trailer material has leaned into the resulting real-world chaos, giving the cast opportunities to react as Jumanji's impossible creatures, environments, and game logic escape their usual boundaries. Dwayne Johnson has also indicated this installment may serve as the conclusion to this version of the franchise, giving Sony a useful, final adventure marketing angle. Unfortunately, the release calendar looks almost comical. 7 days earlier, Avengers, Doomsday, and Dune, Part 3, arrive together. 2 days before Jumanji, the Angry Birds Movie 3 opens. Christmas allows several movies to coexist because families have free time and holiday releases often develop long legs. But there are still only so many premium screens and so much audience money. The previous modern Jumanji films succeeded partly because they became accessible alternatives to bigger event movies. This time, that strategy is being pushed to its limit. If audiences have already spent heavily during the previous weekend, Open World could discover that even Christmas wallets eventually close. Number 2. Ramayana, Part 1. This may be the most fascinating box office experiment on the entire list, because its financial ambition stretches far beyond one national market. Ramayana, Part 1, arrives November 6, with Ranbir Kapoor portraying Rama and Yash portraying Ravana. The production adapts one of India's most culturally important epics, following Rama's journey and the enormous conflict surrounding Sita, Ravana, and the struggle that ultimately leads toward Lanka. The project is designed as a huge two-film cinematic event, rather than an ordinary domestic release. The trailer's greatest advantage is pure scale. Audiences see mythological kingdoms, armies, supernatural imagery, and a reimagined Pushpak Vimana, while the confrontation between Rama and Ravana promises spectacle that producers clearly intend to sell internationally. And international success matters enormously. Reports have placed the combined production investment for the two Ramayana movies at roughly $500 million, making the project one of the boldest financial swings associated with Indian cinema. That does not mean Part 1 individually needs $500 million. Costs are spread across the two film production, and eventual profitability will involve theatrical revenue, distribution arrangements, and other income streams. Still, those numbers completely change expectations. A huge performance in India alone may no longer define success. The filmmakers are clearly chasing viewers around the world. The November 6 date also places it alongside Godzilla -0 and The Cat in the Hat in several markets. If Ramayana successfully crosses cultural boundaries, it could become historic. If international audiences treat it mainly as a regional event, however, one of cinema's grandest productions could become one of 2026's biggest financial questions. Number 1. Digger. Number 1 raises one frightening question. How much can Tom Cruise's name guarantee when he is not playing Ethan Hunt or Maverick? Digger opens October 2 and pairs Cruise with director Alejandro G. Iñárritu. Cruise plays Digger Rockwell, an eccentric oil magnate who causes a global crisis, and then races to convince everyone that he can save humanity from the disaster he helped create. Warner Brothers describes it as a comedy of catastrophic proportions. The trailer's biggest attraction is Cruise himself. Heavy prosthetics, thinning gray hair, a larger frame, unusual teeth, and a southern accent make him almost unrecognizable, while the footage throws in shouting crowds, fighter jets, and increasingly absurd chaos. It is deliberately nothing like Mission Impossible, and that is exactly the financial gamble. Warner Bros. Has put the production cost around $125 million, while more recent trade reporting places it near $130 million. Using Hollywood's frequently cited rule of thumb that a theatrical movie may need roughly 2.5 times its production budget to climb out of the red, puts Digger around $312 million to $325 million worldwide. Once heavier marketing and potentially higher final costs are considered, the title's $350 million break-even figure is a reasonable risk estimate, not an official studio number. For an original, adult-skewing dark comedy, instead of a familiar Cruise franchise, getting anywhere near that figure could make Digger one of 2026's most dangerous box office gambles. So, are these movies really dead on arrival? Or are we about to underestimate the biggest holiday season in years? Remember, none of these films has opened yet, and several could completely destroy these predictions. That is what makes box office watching fun. Tell us which movie will be the biggest surprise, and which one looks dangerously overpriced. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, like the video, subscribe, and join us for the next Hollywood Countdown.